Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to Indycar. My name's Gordon Ross, and today I'm broadcasting from Annie's Land, and I'm back after a little bout of the flu. I'm feeling a bit better now. Had quite a bad chest infection over the last couple of days, but however, I'm now fit, back at work, so it's nice to be back. The subject today is actually about pensions, because one of the things I've been talking to a lot of people about offline, off the programme, has been about pensioners and the role that they played in the previous referendum and how they felt about independence and what they thought the risks were from the information that they were presented with. Now, as we know from the previous referendum in 2014, Better Together claimed that people who were drawing British state pensions would just lose them, that they would just simply stop. Well, that was a complete lie, as we know, because the Department of Work and Pensions actually wrote a letter saying that this was in fact not the case, and that anybody who was drawing a British state pension after independence would continue to get it until they died, and that was a fact. However, it didn't stop the problem spreading, and this malicious rumour that Better Together had spread, this lie, permeated the entire campaign, that people would lose their pensions, that it would stop. In fact, even people going door to door were telling pensioners that if they voted yes, their pensions would just end and they would starve to death. Now, all of this obviously was just part of the fear campaign, but it emphasises a problem within the older electorate. Young people, as we know, in the previous referendum voted in large numbers, in fact in majority, for yes. They actually wanted independence because they saw the future of a new country. They wanted to build a new economy, they wanted to see Scotland independent, they were filled with hope and optimism, and they wanted to work towards it. But once you took the demographic above about 55, those who were approaching their pensions and were about to retire, the story changed dramatically, and that group of voters was far more worried about themselves and their future than they were about the futures of their children or their grandchildren or other people's children or young people in general. What they were worried about was what Better Together was telling them, which was that their pensions were at risk, that they would lose their state pensions. The only single payment that everybody in the UK is entitled to when they retire, regardless of whether they have a private pension or not, is the state pension. And the state pension in this country is the lowest state pension in the entire European Union. It is by far the lowest that there is. It's probably something like a quarter of the best pension in Europe. I think the best pensions were in Denmark. I'll need to check that out, but I seem to recall that the British pension is at the bottom of the list. It is a pittance. It's barely enough for most elderly people to get by on. They have to claim winter fuel allowance just to carry on through the winter to pay their fuel bills. So, is it worth saving that? And if that's the case, is that all the pension that you're going to get? Remember that things have changed now. The advent of Brexit has altered the balance completely. Now, apart from the fact that if independence happened tomorrow, your pension would still be safe anyway, if you go and vote no again in another referendum because you're scared of losing your pension, what will actually happen is your pension will be cut. The Tories have already started to remove the triple lock that kept pensions keeping pace with inflation, so that the pension didn't drop in value relative to what you could afford to buy with the pound. But the trouble now is that if you stay with the UK, the pound is gradually losing value, so it buys less and less and less. And not only is it losing value, but inflation is rising very, very fast. Now, it's going to be almost impossible after Brexit for the Tories to be able to continue to pay the pensions at the current rate. They will cut them, and they will cut them simply because the economy is going to go into a major contraction. The Brexit effect will be such that about 10% of the UK's economy will be lost at a stroke, because the effect on our exports and the effect on our balance of trade is such that our borrowing costs will go up. Everything will be affected because the entire UK economy is based on its ability to borrow money at low interest rates. And as soon as it becomes a big risk to the banks, as it will do after Brexit, the cost of borrowing goes up, and therefore the cost of getting enough money together to pay pensions is going to skyrocket as well. Not only that, but food prices will rise, energy prices are already rising, fuel prices for cars and lorries and trucks also rising. That pushes the price of goods up, the price of food up even further. So the inflationary pressures are enough to ensure that after Brexit, your pension is going to decline in value rapidly. Even though it's still there, it's going to decline in value rapidly, and the Tories will look to start cutting pensions. And as they do that, you'll find yourself getting poorer and poorer and poorer. Now, contrast that with what will happen if you vote yes to independence next year. What will happen then is that you'll no longer be operating with British pound sterling, which are dropping off a cliff in terms of their value against other currencies. Instead, you'll be using what is effectively 10% of sterling that is actually the Scottish pound. Now, the Scottish pound is the part of the pound that we are allowed to use because it belongs to us. A tenth of the Bank of England belongs to Scotland. It's part of, shall we say, our divorce settlement from the UK. It's the bit that belongs to Scotland. It always has belonged to Scotland because it's where all the Scottish money ends up going. So if we have 10% of the Bank of England, and that's approximately £1.7 trillion, you can put that into the new Central Bank of Scotland, and you can put all your oil revenues into that Central Bank of Scotland as well. The currency of Scotland, the Scottish pound, is going to be far stronger, and it's going to be worth a lot more than what's left of the British pound, which is only going to be worth 90% of what it was before Scotland left the Union. So remember, although the UK has lost 30% or so of its value due mostly to Brexit, it's going to lose another 10% when Scotland leaves the UK, because Scotland will take its 10% of the Bank of England to create the Scottish pound. So the talk that Alistair Darling came out with last time about walking away from using the British pound is partly true. We'll be walking away from a British pound that is worth 90 pence, and we'll be on to a Scottish pound which is worth 100 pence. All right, it might even be worth more than that, because we will have our oil revenues back, we will have all our whisky revenues back, we will have all our export revenues back, we'll have all our petrol and diesel taxes, we'll have our alcohol taxes, our VAT returns, and all of our income tax. And all of that put together is going to create one of the best pensions that you could have in Europe. And there's no reason why the state pension that people get in Scotland couldn't double virtually overnight. Not only will it be safer, it's going to be far higher as well. And not only will it be far higher, it's going to be much more secure. And it would apply across the board. Also, the pension age can be reduced in Scotland. And by reducing the pension age so that more people draw the pensions, then more jobs are available for the younger people coming up who need careers, who need jobs. Also, we can attract more young people into the country to work in our expanding green economy, which is essentially the driving force behind this new Scottish state. We will depend very largely for our future security on the surpluses of things like electrical energy that we can produce, plus the surpluses from trading in things like fish, in foodstuffs, in textiles, in chemicals, in oil and gas, but also in things like video games and high technology and space research, satellite manufacturing. There are so many different threads to the Scottish economy that are all at the moment beginning to really show massive signs of growth. Remember, Scotland's economy is projected to grow at 1.7%, I believe, this year alone, and that's in the midst of all the Brexit uncertainty. The Scottish economy is pulling ahead very strongly at the moment. It's seen as a good bet. So, if you are a pensioner already and you're drawing your state pension, or if you're about to retire and you're looking to draw your state pension, you do not need to worry this time, because Brexit is now the bad choice. Brexit is now the future threat to your pension, not independence. Independence is the security of your pension. Now, not only the security, but the chance of a pension rise that you will never, ever get with the Tory government. The Tory government is not interested in paying out state pensions. They only want people to take out private pensions. And if you think about this, a Scottish economy which is expanding and growing all the time and is massively expanding its exports of both energy, whisky, oil, chemicals, gases and all the rest of it, if it's doing that, the investment is going to flood into Scottish companies. And when you have a pension fund, if you have a private pension in Scotland at that point, it will be investing the money in those big blue chip companies and it will be making a phenomenal return. So your private pensions in an independent Scotland would be worth even more than they would be in Brexit Britain. So I'm appealing to people who've got a bit of a head on their shoulders for their own future and looking after themselves when they retire to think again and look at independence not as the enemy this time, not as the bogeyman, but as the better alternative for your pension. Instead of the complete oblivion and guesswork and who knows what will happen Brexit future that you have ahead of you if you stick with the UK. If you go with independence next year and you vote for it with the young people, not only will you be protecting their jobs and creating new careers and thousands of new jobs in the process by helping to support that, you will get back more than you put in. You will get a much healthier pension back. You will get guaranteed top of the range NHS. You will get a new transport system which is fit for the 21st century. You'll have your roads in tip-top shape. You'll have all cars electric. There'll be no more pollution in the country. All of your electricity will be coming from almost completely free renewable sources, and you'll have so much electricity that you will hardly have to pay anything for it, particularly if the energy industry is nationalised completely and brought into the control of a not-for-profit Scottish energy company. Because if that happens, then not only will your pension be increased, but it will go a lot further. You won't need a winter fuel allowance because the power that you need to heat your home will be cheap enough that you can easily afford it. You won't need to apply for any extra help. So I guess what I'm saying to you is I want you to think again about pensions, and I want you to stop listening to the lies that were told in the first referendum that your pension would somehow be cut off immediately. Even if you're drawing a British state pension at the moment, if Scotland became independent tomorrow, either the British government would continue to pay your pension under existing agreements, or if not, the Scottish government will pay your pension under a new agreement. And not only that, but it will pay you a better pension. There is no way the Scottish government would expect you to vote for independence without a cast iron guarantee of your pension. So I say to you now that when the next referendum comes around, there will be a cast iron guarantee that your pension will be secure. Not only secure, it will be index linked and it will increase. That's all I have to say today. Those of you who are not of pensionable age, and I'm talking about people younger than me, I'm coming up to that stage in my life now. I'm 56, and in the next 20 years I've got to eventually retire as well. And I don't want to find myself at the mercy of a Tory government which is chopping away at my state pension. I want to be able to live the remaining years of my life as a useful member of society without starving and without freezing and without having to rely on my children to come and give me handouts. That shouldn't be the kind of country any of us wants. And even the most ardent of British supporters can't possibly want their future to be as miserable as that. Even if you support the monarchy, you support the idea of the British state, you must see what the risks are in Brexit. The risks are far higher now than they were in independence, and independence is now looking a far more settled choice. Remember that what we didn't have the last time, we now do have. We now have an investment bank. We now have a Department of Social Security. We will have a central bank. We will have a currency. We will have all of the things that Scotland needs to be fully independent. It's not guesswork now. It's not airy-fairy white papers promising you things. These things exist and they will exist. You won't be guessing anymore about independence, and it won't be an article of faith voting for independence. It will simply be a hard-headed, solid financial choice that you would make, right, to protect yourself, to protect your family, and to protect the security of your own family, your own wealth, your own ability to survive. But not only that, but the ability of the entire country to survive will be helped by you doing this. And that's it. That's all I need to say to you today. But think bigger, right? As well as thinking about yourself and your pension, think about your children as well. Think about their pensions. Think about the industries that you're going to help create. And think about the extra wealth that will be generated to support your pension. You're going to have a better time after independence, not a worse time. And not only that, but your children will thank you for doing it. I'll leave you with that thought. Bye for now.